Okay, today is another sacred lab you're going to be able to do on your computer, on your Chromebook. I'm going to give you some unknown sequences of DNA. You're going to go to this website, blast.ncib.nim.nih.gov/blast. Most of the time I just put in DNA blast and it takes me to this site. What this is the results of the Human Genome Project, which is including lots of genomes of lots of organisms now. And one of the things this site is going to have you do is take a set of sequence of bases, DNA bases, and it's going to search for all the organisms that share that same DNA sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and I went ahead and copied one, and I'm going to paste it into this spot here where it says enter extension number, FASTA sequences or query sequences. I paste that in, and what you'll see are all those little nitrogenous bases in there, the A, G, C's, and T's. Remember now, those are the instructions for making proteins. The order of amino acids are going in there. I'm going to go to the bottom of the page, and I'm going to press under here, under Program Selection, Optimize for somewhat similar sequences. I want to show you that this particular gene and many genes we share with many organisms. And then what you're going to do is you're going to press blast on the bottom here. So what it's doing right now is searching the site for any organism that shares a similar gene sequence that I just presented to it. Takes a few minutes here depending on how crowded it is. You can see that they're talking about COVID on the bottom. I'm assuming there's a lot of sequencing going on with the COVID virus. And we have some results. Okay, so if you look at the bottom here, it's given me a lot of organisms that share this similar DNA. And this particular gene is called a tyrosinase. ASE tells me it's an enzyme. We're metabolizing tyrosine, which is one of the amino acids. And in this case, not that you need to know this, but it's going to catalyze the production of melanin. That's the pigment that gives you your dark skin and protects you from UV rays. And it's coming from that particular amino acid, tyrosine. So we're seeing this in quite a few organisms. Now you'll notice we're sharing this, that's weird. We're sharing this gene with many organisms. Pygmy chimpanzee, we're seeing a western lowland gorilla, a chimpanzee, a silvery gibbon. All these are, of course, are primates. Here's humans, right? We share this sequence with many, many organisms, okay? Rhesus monkey. And as you go further and further down on this gene list, what you're going to see is the frequency that the bases are exactly the same. Now, given time with evolution, these bases are going to change. So we expect to see, we'll talk about a molecular clock later on, we expect to see a lot of similarities with the bases, but with a few differences over time. As they mutate, given enough time, they'll mutate. We're going to see more differences. So the query cover here is the percentage of genes that we talked about, when we copied and pasted in here. And of course, we should see 100% on most of these. When we talk about percent identical, these are the genes. This is the number of gene sequences that matched up perfectly to this gene sequence. And this E value here is kind of like a statistical analysis. As long as this is a very low number, all of these zeros tell me that it's just not by chance that some other organism would have these. So as you go further and further down this list, this gene is shared with many, many organisms, okay? And again, it's easy to get overwhelmed, which I don't want you to do. What I do want you to do is take a look at a couple of things on here. First of all, if we go up to the top, it'll talk about the query length. All that means is that there's 1,044 nitrogenous bases, A, G, C's, and T's, that were sequenced here. The molecular type is DNA. When it talks about whether this gene has been expressed, it has been expressed. In other words, it's produced RNA, and it does produce proteins. And what else you need to know? We'll go down here to this GenBank, this graphics and distance tree results. You can play around with those. One of the things I wanted to show you was, let's see, I'm going to press the ascension number. What that is the gene sequence for this pygmy chimpanzee. And if I click on that, a couple things will show up. And one of the things I want you to see, okay, well, here's the sequence, okay, for the pygmy chimpanzee, right? There it is from the top, TATTT, right? You can compare this. We don't have to physically, but you can compare this to the human gene and see how many mutations there are. It says that we share a lot in the common, right, with this particular organism, which means that we shared a common ancestry. I'm looking for, and I don't see it on this one. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go down to where I know it is. Here's the human tyrosinase gene, and I'm going to press on this ascension number here. And I'm looking for something called publication, medical publication. Also, I don't see it. All right. Well, what I'm looking for is any recent data they've had on this particular gene. I don't know why it's not showing up here. All right, let me come back to that. The other thing I want you to look at is this distant tree results. When I press the distant tree results, I'm going to make something called a cladogram, right? What a cladogram is a family tree. And because of this Human Genome Project and this DNA blast, we are no longer having to use just homologous structures that look the same, but we can actually look at the DNA sequencings to determine how close these organisms are related to each other. Right over here to the side, they'll have a key. These are only primates we're dealing with. You see all the greens. And here, highlighted down here, they talk about these different organisms that have this tyrosine. You'll notice, for example, here's the gorilla. It branches off a little further apart than the rest of the Homo sapiens, right? So this gene you're going to see in Homo sapiens, right, are very, very similar, and very similar in the gorilla, but not as similar. Right, so maybe we share 94% of the same, or maybe 98% in this particular gene, which tells us that the gorilla and the human share a common ancestry. Right. Anyway, these are all the variants from those genes, and it's just called a cladogram. We'll talk more about that later on. I'm going to try one more time here to find a publication. So I'm pressing on here again. I just think some of these don't have publications. Here it is. Okay, so where it says PubMed, if I press on that, and it'll give me the latest research on this particular gene sequence. Here it says the induction of pigmentation in mouse fibroblast by expression of human tyrosinase complementary DNA. Now maybe that doesn't all make sense, but it eventually will when we talk about complementary DNA. But here's the latest research on that particular gene. All right. You know, we're not going to become experts on this. I just want you're going to take one sequence, you're going to try to research it, come up with some stuff, look at a cladogram, see if there's any latest research on that, and all by the power of the internet, right? You got that right in front of you, which is kind of cool. Okay, thank you very much.